es muy malo. Brutto el pato de vestuario. La interpretación siempre negativa. Siempre negativa. Nunca positiva.
For one final time in the 2024-25 season, welcome to Siempre Positivo with me, Sam Marsden, Rik Sharma and Tony Juan Mati. Rik, how are you?
Yeah, good. Just starting to look forward to what's to come in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, what is to come in the weeks ahead?
Trip to the Club World Cup to Atlanta for me. I'll be there for 3 weeks. If anyone's in Atlanta, let me know. We can meet up and have a beer or a coffee or something.
There we go. Tony, ¿qué tal? Tony, the big question is, what's to come for you in the weeks ahead?
Good morning. Well, before answering this, I wanted to tell you that Rik doesn't seem very excited having to travel to Atlanta.
I'm a bit more excited than I was, but it's true at the moment, given let's be relatively neutral about this. What's happening in the United States doesn't seem like the best place to be going.
Bueno. No, about me, I think I already said it. I'll go to Menorca to be relaxed, and good luck for all those covering Barca's summer transfer.
I can already see you've got less wrinkles, your hair's looking better than ever, you look relaxed.
No shirt.
No. Yes, some people in the last weeks have told me that I look better in terms of hair because I was losing a lot of hair, but now I feel better. When you take distance from this circus of club with this crazy club, you start to get better and better and better. It's not natural medicine. Our ¿cómo se dice? Antepasados?
Predecessors.
Yes, our predecessors, when they were in Neolítico, Paleolítico, they didn't know Barca. That's why they had so much health. Yes, they were living 90 years, no illness in terms of stress. They didn't need psychologists. That's all because Barca was not even founded at that time.
The problem is, and we will come on to Barcelona finishing the season with a 3-0 win against Athletic Club and the Women's Champions League final, which Barca lost to Arsenal. But the problem you've had, Tony, is at Sport is you can't disconnect. I'm probably somewhere in the middle of you and Rik. Rik just doesn't care at all about all the contract stuff and the transfer stuff. I'm somewhere in the middle, and you're at the extreme. Like, you couldn't disconnect, which is a credit to you in a way, because you obviously it's what made you very good at your job at Sport and helped you get so many stories. But it was also perhaps had downsides on sort of like a personal, social life side of thing. I mean, the perfect example is this week. I feel like it's gone even, I don't know, maybe not further than ever, but just like when we look at, the Lamine Yamal renewal, the Ansu Fati going to Monaco, the Joan Garcia stories, just the amount of stuff that comes out related to Barca is just insane. I don't know if Real Madrid compares. I don't think people in England might say Manchester United compare. I don't think it's the same. And I use this as the example, but just like Fabrizio Romano is obviously good, but this isn't a critique either way or the other, but it's just like within the last week, 4 separate posts he's put sort of almost every day with breaking Ansu Fati to Monaco. It's like how many times can it break, and then it sets off another cycle of that story, and you're having to rush and find out if it's happening, etc., and it just keeps this constant circus. And you were always involved in it.
Yes, that's the way it works now. No, people who has like news, they need to split it in different chapters. Also media. Instead of releasing it in one time, they want to split to sell it by chapters. And yes, I totally agree with you that there is a lot of stuff coming out. It's funny because the club, Barca, complains that Florentino Perez in Madrid controls much better the press, the media, that there is no that criticism that there is in Barcelona.
Everyone's in line. Everyone stays in line.
Yeah, exactly. No, but when you speak with agents or other things, you realize that that's not at all like this. Look what Barcelona is doing with Joan Garcia issue. Look how many people saying Joan Garcia has already given his green light. Joan Garcia has the approval of Hansi Flick to be started. Joan Garcia wants to sign Joan Garcia. Joan Garcia knows that he wants to play. Joan Garcia knows that Barca cannot register him. And Joan Garcia had already decided weeks ago that he was going to Premier League, despite of his agents pushing now towards Barca because they have great relationship now with Deco, because Andy Vara, Juanma Lopez are the same agents of Dani Olmo and Mika Faye. So at the end, all this stuff, all this crazy environment that we have with Barca, it's not only because journalists. I mean, it's especially because everybody inside the club is speaking, sometimes without information or without real information. And that's what makes crazy all this ecosystem with more than 50 journalists having the need of releasing every day at least something, whether it's until which year will be valid the new contract of Lamine Yamal, whether it's the time, at what time exactly will sign Lamine Yamal the new contract, whether is what does the grandma of the father of the daughter of Joan Garcia think regarding his move. So, as you say, working in sport or in Mundo Deportivo or all these things, you cannot take distance. So you get an illness, and I got that illness. I am sick, and now I will recover in the hospital of Menorca.
What time is Lamine Yamal going to sign his contract? I need to do a story on that.
At
4
4
o'clock.
at 4
4
o'clock.
o'clock. Okay.
So after this pod, lunch, you can take a nap and ready to work again.
Not even well at that. Like Rik says, you can just prepare the story and go away and forget about it. You don't have to be on top of it, worrying about every detail. It obviously is different in Sport, Mundo Deportivo, ESPN. There's a certain amount of, not freedom, obviously there is, especially when it comes to these bigger things, there is an expectation that you're on top of these stories and can maybe get them first, but it's more just about being prepared for when they do happen.
Yeah, I can actually read you my Lamine Yamal story now. Barcelona's teenage star Lamine Yamal signed a new contract until 2021 with the Catalan Giants on Tuesday.
2021, is this like some sort of
Sorry.
Benjamin Button stuff?
2031.
Benjamin Button. Here we go.
I've actually got just X's there because I'm gonna have to put in the year when we know for sure what the year is.
He signed a new contract which will end when he's 13.
The 17-year-old winger is already one of the club's key players and helped them land a domestic treble of La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup this season. Then another big line full of X's to insert quote from the statement, insert a quote from Yamal if there's one when it comes out. Spanish media reported the new deal will make him one of Barcelona's best paid players, and then it goes into a bunch of stuff about him winning the Euros, how many goals and assists, 18 goals, 25 assists this season, 55 matches, blah, 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 blah. So it's ready to go, just needs the time to release it.
Yeah, there we go. Exclusive AFP story. Is this podcast gonna have to be held now until you've released your AFP copy?
No, it can go.
Okay, back to the football, because there was one last game. Barcelona finishing the season with, in the circumstances, the fact they had nothing to play for, the fact they've been partying for a while, fact it was away at San Mamés against Athletic Club, who were a good side. Obviously, they also had very little to play for, having already secured Champions League qualification and missed out on their dream San Mamés Europa League final. But a 3-0 win for Barcelona, 2 goals for Robert Lewandowski, finally bringing up 100 goals for the club, which is something we've been waiting for. We probably had copy written on that for a few months because it was on I think it was one of the Dortmund or Inter Milan games, maybe, when I even had that written about him scoring 100 goals, and then obviously the hamstring injury, but he did, and he brought the 100th goal up with a lovely finish, a dinked finish. A very nice Simon to make it 1-0, second goal, a free header from a corner, making it 2-0, and Barca's third goal coming late on, Dani Olmo penalty. Rik, not too much to say about the game, really, like we say, given the circumstances. There are other things to talk about, a season to reflect on, but solid way to end the season. Perhaps the only thing we could talk about, and again, Flick completely free to do what he wants, but the fact that he pretty much, he made a few changes in these final 2 games of the season, but he pretty much gave minutes even off the bench to guys like De Jong and Olmo, to players that he's played all season, as opposed to taking the opportunity to give Ansu Fati a send-off or Pablo Torre minutes or whoever it is. Obviously, there was against Athletic Club a chance for Iñaki Peña, who he said he wanted to say thanks to.
Yeah, I can understand it from Flick's perspective. Not giving Ansu some minutes or something, but picking a fairly strong team because he wants to finish the season well. He doesn't like to lose games. He wants to go and play the 4th best team in Spain and beat them in their own stadium. And I think that, think about when you play football on a Thursday night. You still want to do the best you can, even though the game is completely meaningless. So I think it's just natural to want to pick a good team.
What do you mean it's meaningless?
There you go. Imagine now then playing in front of 50,000 people on a Thursday night.
No wonder you never made it with that attitude. Nothing is meaningless. You train as you play. Everything has meaning. Meaningless.
Exactly.
Meaningless.
That's why he wants to win these games. That's why Lewandowski wants to play in these games. And I'm quite glad for Lewandowski that he got these goals, because I think it wouldn't have been good for him to have not scored and to start the summer with him having not scored for a few weeks, it kind of shrouded in a little bit of doubt about next season and so on. Lovely finish for his first goal, got to his milestone for 100 goals, and I think we can have a relatively calm summer in terms of his position.
Yeah, Tony, the future can wait, I guess, for Lewandowski, but I guess we should reflect on 101 goals in 3 seasons, joining the club as a 33-year-old who was about to turn 34, but was 33 until he was 34. It's been I think Barca have got their money's worth, haven't they? 40, 45 million. The goals he scored, 2 league titles in 3 years, and like Rik says, not just to score at the end of the season, but also, I guess, to have that. I don't think it was a monkey off the back, but the fact that he's brought up the 100 now before the start of next season, it was a nice way for him to finish 42 goals in all competitions this season.
Well, I think he's a little bit underrated, to be honest. We have spent all this season praising Pedri and especially Lamine and Rafinha because it's like we consider as guaranteed that Lewandowski has to score this amount of goals. People saying, he cannot run. We need a new number 9. But if you analyze how many games he has scored important goals this season, and especially if you analyze that in important moments he has been clinical, I totally think he's underrated. Because, for example, and I'm a big fan of Ferran Torres, but the day that you need it to, even if it's an easy goal, okay, easy goal, but even if it's an easy goal, the day that you need it to be clinical against Inter de Milan in Giuseppe Meazza, that day, brilliant season, but that day I'm not putting the ball into the net. So having experience is not only about quality, it's knowing when you need to vaccinate, knowing when you cannot just cross 2 centimeters too much the ball when you shot. And I think Lewandowski has proved that he's big responsible for what Barcelona has got. I remember a couple of games that Barca was not able to score, and against Alaves at home or other teams. I think he was totally key, and I think he's not getting credits enough for the season that he has done, to be honest.
Yeah, the standout moments for me were the goals in the first Clasico in October. That first finish was really, really good from just outside the box. His only goal from outside the box all season, I think. And obviously the goal against Atletico Madrid that made it 2-1 in the league game at the Metropolitano.
Yeah. I thought it was quite curious after the game when he was asked about scoring 100 goals or 101 goals now for Barca that he didn't really want to speak about it. He just kind of deflected away from it. And usually Lewandowski is quite happy to speak about his own achievements and his own goals. But in this case, he just said, I'm just trying to do my best, but we've got so many young players, we have to look after them. And he wasn't really focused on having got to his 100.
Why is it curious? Why should he focus more on it?
Well, because that's what he does normally. Normally, you speak to him actually after Barca. He's normally quite. I don't mean this necessarily in a strongly negative way, because goal scorers are like this, but he's quite egotistical about his goals sometimes,
Yeah,
and speaks about them when he doesn't need to.
I think you might have mentioned this to me or someone, or I read this somewhere, but maybe it was just a little bit because obviously he didn't win the Pichichi. He went to Mbappe, and maybe he didn't feel like it was
Yeah.
a moment. Maybe if he felt like, oh look, I scored 100 goals, it was almost he'd feel like people are saying, oh look, he's ignoring the. I don't know. Maybe it was to do with
But
a
yeah,
little
maybe
bit.
sulking a little bit about the Pichichi. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Mbappe scored 31, Lewandowski scored 27. The four difference was Mbappe played about 300 more minutes, but he also scored 4 more penalties. So, I mean, they scored at a pretty much similar rate, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
probably came down to Lewandowski missing the end of the season mainly, and when he did come back and made his first start, he was probably not really fully fit against Villarreal. And Mbappe finishing the season in such good form, almost as other teams sort of switched off, he was still sort of driven by that goal.
Definitely. I was actually quite surprised that Lewandowski looked as good as he did against Athletic, given how bad he looked in the previous game.
Yeah, just a public service announcement. We will have some podcasts coming on Patreon in the well, one this week and one next week. One reflecting on the season as a whole with our awards, player of the season, which will be difficult, and moments of the season, most improved, etc. Stuff like that, and also one where we play the sporting director and we analyse Barca squad, see what they need to do this summer, who we'd keep, who we'd sell, who we would have doubts about, who we might sign, where we'd like to strengthen, etc. But we will just to reflect on this being the last free pod of the season. Um, I just want to sort of reflect on the season as a whole, not pick a player of the season or a moment of the season or anything, but a question for both of you, because yesterday, as I was putting together a self-important Instagram post about all the great games I've covered this season, it sort of struck me, not that it hadn't struck me before, we probably talked about it and stuff, but just the pure amount of like chaotic games there have been. And I guess everyone knows, but the Atletico comebacks, the Benfica game, the both into games, the Clasico Copa final, the Clasico in La Liga, even Celta Vigo. I mean, I guess there was a similar Celta Vigo game under Xavi, and you probably wouldn't put it in that echelon of games, but when you group it with all them and all the comebacks, etc. Me and Rik obviously weren't here in Barcelona during the Guardiola seasons. We were here for the Luis Enrique years, but I don't remember a season being as, I don't want to say fun, but do you know what I mean? Just so many sort of standout games for reasons not necessarily of Barca being amazing, which was perhaps the case in Guardiola, perhaps the case with Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. And it may just be recency bias because we've been starved of this sort of football in Barcelona over the last sort of decade, maybe not quite so long. But yeah, I don't know. I have seen people as well in the Catalan press. I mean, Tony may have a stronger opinion, sort of almost comparing it to saying it's as most fun as perhaps since the Guardiola season, or maybe even more fun because of those reasons, because of the unexpected nature of the season. So, what were your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think I actually, to be honest, I preferred the Luis Enrique Barca to Guardiola Barca. Not in terms of quality, perhaps. I think Guardiola's Barca is still the peak. But in terms of entertainment and enjoyment and watching the games, I preferred watching Messi, Neymar, Suarez, and I prefer Hansi Flick's Barca. And part of that's due to Flick's style, the kind of we'll score more goals than you style, which basically leads to games like this. And to be honest, it's been a very refreshing season for me after sort of football in the last 5 6 years has kind of shifted to more kind of physical, more so much, I don't know, less exciting football and more.
Tony Pulis back fours.
Yeah, exactly. And very, yeah, very physical, very technically adroit, but not necessarily, without wingers, football without wingers. And then suddenly you've got Lamine Yamal, who's the best winger we've seen for years and years and years. And he's ripping it up on the wing. I like this football.
Tony, how do you rate this season in
No,
terms of those elements that we've been talking about, as opposed to obviously it's been a successful
in,
season?
in terms of if people has had more fun. Well, more fun, yes, because they won Champions League, no? But in terms of day by day, I don't think fans had more fun with MSN than this year because at the end, having being funny or having a good time, it's not related with the quality because I don't know after going party, for example, if you have a McDonald's open, a Big Mac can be can be the happiest thing that you can enjoy in your life, and you're eating a Big Mac. And after these complicated seasons, what the supporters of Barca have lived with Lamine, Lewandowski, and Rafinha is top because it's not rational. The feelings you cannot compare about feeling. Beside this, in terms of quality, if you want to compare Rafinha, Lamine, Lewandowski to Messi, Neymar, Suarez, my eyes are going to be full of blood. I'm going to kill myself. I mean, no one with 1 centimeter of brain can even compare Messi, Neymar, Suarez with Rafinha, Lamine, and Lewandowski. So please, let's try to be serious. Sam, I know that it's end of the season. We are tired. Difficult to create interesting
No, but
questions.
I'm not. No, I accept. Like, and I was going to say to Rik, like, probably it's funny because probably in terms of the scale, like, no one would argue the 2011 team. Maybe some people would. The sort of 2009, 2011 team, probably the best Barca team ever, if not one of the best teams in European football ever. Perhaps the 2015 team then next, and then this team third. I don't think anyone's arguing quality. And obviously, it's important to have that sort of nuance and context to what we're saying. I'm not saying this team is better or the quality of the front three is better, but just in terms of, I think the context also is important of the fact that this has come after a lean period, even though Barca won the league 2 years ago, whereas 2015 came on the back of, even if there was a little dip off with Tata where they didn't win anything, on the back of a very, very successful Barca and not having that sort of thirst for, not thirst, but the sort of expectations were still so high.
That's exactly it. The context is absolutely everything. People expected Real Madrid to walk this league after they won the last one. Barca were in a slump. They signed Mbappe, so on. So that context is also a massive factor. The fact we've watched a very, very, very dull Barca last season compared to the exciting Barca of this season. When they had that Luis Enrique year, sure, Tata's Barca weren't great to watch by any means, but they still had Lionel Messi. So you were still expecting a lot from them when Luis Enrique took over. And this Barca, people didn't have that expectation. To me, it kind of reminds me of, just to use a Tony-esque kind of example, when I was in San Sebastian once, and it was really hot, and I've been in the sea. I had like a salty mouth from the sea and the sand on the beach. I went to this bar and I had a Cruz Campo, Canyon of Cruz Campo, and it was one of the best beers I've ever had in my life. And yet, most people would say Cruz Campo is an awful beer, one of the worst Spanish beers, but it was absolutely perfect.
Yes, totally agree. Totally agree with you. So at the end, the supporters of Barca were so frustrated, not even frustrated, just like disconnected with the team because it was a team that was not transmitting nothing. And this time, with Hansi Flick, the team has recovered the heart, the attitude, and also a modern style of football. I would say that there has been a lot of problems regarding this speech, toxic speech in Barcelona, with some people who has never played football saying that no, our DNA is players like Ricky Puig, tiki taka, like playing only walking. No, football now is running, and I'm happy to see that all those hypocrites who were against this, now they have enjoyed the first with this Hansi Flick style, which is not based at all in the possession, because possession is totally unuseful if you don't take profit of the spaces, if the spaces are behind. If the spaces are in the midfield, yes, take time passing, but if the spaces are behind the defense, you have to go and counter-attack, and Lamine and Rafinha has shown that. So I think that's what the most that's the thing that the supporters appreciate the most, no? Apart from titles or whatever, the day to day are not even the quality, just the feelings, the vibes that this team has brought again, and you need only to check the ticketing, the attendance to Montjuic in the last 2-3 months.
Yeah. We'll get more into that a little bit, and like I say, on player individual awards on Patreon with the player and the awards of the season, etc. later this week. Tony, just before we let you go, and me and Rik turn our attention to the disappointing final that Barca's women had in the Champions League on Saturday.
One question before leaving.
Well, I have one question for you first. You have one question for me, and then I have one for you.
I've got one question for Tony as well. Let's see how this pans out. Mexican standoff.
So you start, Sam.
No, my question was just going back to Joan Garcia. Not to predict what will happen with Joan Garcia, but, and this may not be sort of a sentiment on the ground here in Barcelona, but I was just following the stuff about Ter Stegen and the uprising. I don't know if uprising is too strong, but there's over 150,000 tweets saying Ter Stegen out, and it could be bots, it could be whatever, on Twitter. There's a 1 hour 22 video of all his, I wouldn't say mistakes, but goals that he's conceded, etc. And I was just thinking, like, if Barca don't now sign a goalkeeper and they go with Ter Stegen, it feels a little bit like when you sort of have a sitting duck manager. Like I mean, we already see any mistake is highlighted in terms of Ter Stegen, but a little bit, like when it got to Javin, it was like if he stays, it's wrong. If he doesn't, there's no sort of solution. The same we've seen with Manchester United with Ten Hag. Am I getting a bit carried away, or is that potentially a factor with Ter Stegen going into next season if Barca don't now sign a goalkeeper?
Well, this is complicated to say, but trying to be fast. For me, Barca is playing again the same game, again the same play, using the media as they used with Frankie de Jong to kick Ter Stegen out. In my opinion, in life, always is better if you want to get rid of someone, the best thing you can do is, if for example, tomorrow I want to leave this podcast, best thing is to sit with you. Hey, guys, I know that maybe you won't be happy, but I think I need this, blah, blah, blah. So I don't understand why some professionals are not convinced that face-to-face and being honest always gives more credit and you get more. Imagine that Barca really, Hansi Flick and Deco want to get rid, which is, I think, true, of Marc-André Ter Stegen. My question is, why not making a coffee with him? Hey, can we have a coffee?
He loves coffee as well.
In a training center. Yeah, in a training center. And even if it's not easy to say, I know it's not easy to say. It's not even to say to your couple after 15 years of marriage that you want to break the relationship. It's not easy, but hey, Mark, we would like you to consider an exit. We know that you have a contract. If you decide to stay, we will respect it, for sure. But our opinion is that if we can choose, we prefer you to leave. because this and this and this, we understand that you disagree. We understand that you think you are better than Joan Garcia. But in our opinion, we are paid to get decisions. It would be better. Then the player, in this case the goalkeeper, goes home and tells you you are a motherfucker, blah, 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 blah. But after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days,
Sinks in.
while he's in the swimming pool or in Maldives having holidays, he will start realizing that at the end you were honest with what you said. You went directly to him, and he will start considering that maybe he doesn't want to be in a part where he's not appreciated or wanted, and then he will start calling his agent. Right now, what Barca is doing, Barca has to give a lot of money to Ter Stegen from the past, payments deferred from the past. They're making him angry. So whether they get him, there are only two options. They destroy him and then they win. But if Mark stays, they will have Mark angry. And I'm sure that Marc-André Ter Stegen will stay because there is World Cup next year. So what a stupid game they are playing, because imagine that now Ter Stegen this season is superb season. You will have him angry as the same that happened with Frankie de Jong, and now he's playing top, and you have had problems to extend his contract because you used the media to kick him out. They are doing the same again with Ter Stegen. That's what they cannot understand. And to sum up, I think they won't destroy him. Ter Stegen will stay, mainly because a question of money. I'm not seeing Barca paying all the money that they owe him, because if they pay for Barca, it's a horrible deal because they win nothing, because this will be counted on the fair play. So you get rid of Marc-André, but you have a minus 50 in your books because you have to pay him everything. So Barca cannot do this. So I don't see the sense of what Barca is doing. Marc-André Ter Stegen won't leave, in my opinion. And with Marc-André Ter Stegen not leaving, there's nothing that you can do to sign Joan Garcia, in my opinion.
Good answer.
Yeah.
No, because I'm very angry, but that's for another chapter. I'm very angry, but not with what they are doing with Ter Stegen. I don't care. In fact, I also agree that Joan Garcia would bring more than Ter Stegen. I also agree with it. But this is not the way you need to work. This is not the way you need to work this is the same that when they leaked the contract of Frankie de Jong to the media.
Yeah.
They are trying to test how Ter Stegen reacts to this. If he gets angry like Gundogan and says, okay, fuck off, I'm going to Saudi. But I don't think that's going to happen at all. And I don't think Barca will sign Joan Garcia. I don't think it at all.
Who has the next question?
Well, my question for Tony is, maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, you said, it was quite a good phrase, but I just don't know if I agree with it fundamentally, it's only a successful season if you would sign for it every year, is what you said. What do you think about that now after Barca win the domestic treble? Madrid don't win anything.
In terms of results, it's not a fantastic year. Barca supporters would sign this season every year. Go into the street, we can go together. If you get more of 50% of the people signing this for 20 years in a row doing this and not winning Champions League, I invite you to Botafumeiro to have dinner. We can go to make this poll whenever you want.
No, I think I agree. I don't think people would sign for it every year, even if they win 3 trophies, Madrid win none.
That's what I wanted to say.
But it's also because they, in football, you want the unknown. You want the surprise of winning as well. Not just sign for everything every year.
You want to win the Champions League. You ask to the supporters of Barca if they sign to win every year Champions League and being knocked out in Copa del Rey by Sam's team in Celebrate in first round and losing La Liga every year, they will sign it.
So you're saying it's not a successful season then? That's what it comes down to, really.
No, not successful. No, not successful enough. Because what is successful enough is that what you would sign for every year to happen.
Tony should be on commission from Celebrate.
Well, I changed Burnley's topic for Celebrate. Swap.
What was your question?
No, my question is, now that I'm going to leave the podcast when you talk about women champions final, because I'm not good enough to talk about women's football, despite we have you discussing men's football. Will you say in the pod with Rik that out of 10 games, Barca would have won 9 of these 10 again? Will you say this against Arsenal?
No, against Arsenal in
Oh,
in
for the
this
women's
Arsenal game,
final.
definitely not.
Yeah, for the women's final, because it seems that 9 of 10 times Barca would have won, like you said against Atletico, like you said
No,
against...
No,
that was not like the Barca Atletico
definitely
men's
not.
game, no.
They were awful.
Vale. So Arsenal, it was not bad luck, no?
No. Deserved to win easily, Arsenal. Yeah.
Okay, then they can go have lunch, relaxed.
Go and have lunch and enjoy your last week at sport.
It's ironic or it's real comment to enjoy?
Yeah, to enjoy.
Real comment.
Enjoy sport. Thank you, and good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you and good luck. Ciao. See you.
Ciao.
See you, Tony.
We'll be right back.
El titular te lo pongo yo. Enjoy football. Y ya está.
Welcome back. Barcelona's run as European champions ended on Saturday as they were beaten 1-0 by Arsenal in Lisbon. They'd won back-to-back finals. They were hoping to make it 3 in a row, but it was not to be, Rik. What happened? You were there?
Yeah, it wasn't to be. They didn't play very well. They were actually outplayed by Arsenal in the first half. People might look at the score, like Tony perhaps, as he was just saying into that pod. He might look at the score, see 1-0 and think, maybe it was unlucky. Maybe Arsenal scored and Barca just got hit, couldn't find a way through. They hit the bar with Pina and so on. But they were outplayed in the first half by Arsenal. And the second half was a bit more... like Barca were playing a bit better. They did make 1 or 2 chances. They had more of the ball, but Arsenal weren't really under severe threat. And then they snatched a goal on the counter attack from Blackstenius with 15 minutes to go, and that won it for them. And they didn't really suffer after that either. Barca, in theory, were going to throw everything at Arsenal to try and find a way back in, but they barely threatened them.
Yeah, I mean, even the Pina one off the bar was a deflected effort, right? I think Katakoi was the busier of the goalkeeper. In the first half, she made a great save from Frida Manon, which was obviously a long-range shot, which can happen. But then in the second half as well, there was one from Alessia Russo just before the Arsenal goal. She was certainly the goalkeeper that had made the best saves. It was just staggering to me how little Barca created. I don't know if Caroline Graham-Hansen was fully fit. She's obviously had some injury problems this season. I thought of the Barca team, Pina was okay, but I thought in general of the players sort of going forward, Patry maybe wasn't bad, but you don't expect her to contribute in the final third. Aitana was the only one who really turned up. Eva Pajor was kind of non-existent. That's 5 finals she's lost now in the Champions League after 4 with Wolfsburg. It kind of feels like, I don't know, we've spoken about it this season. I wouldn't say I backtracked before the final, but I perhaps was willing to give Barca a little bit more credit than we had done earlier in the season because of the way they'd took Chelsea apart, because of the games against Wolfsburg. But it's kind of like a repeated pattern this season now that this happens every now and again, and that's the sign of something not being completely right, even if they are still the best team in Europe. Despite what Tony says, despite what I said to Tony, like, I still think they're the best team in Europe, and I still do think 7, 8, 9 times out of 10 they would beat Arsenal. Not playing that game that they played on Saturday. I think normally they would play better if that makes sense. But I just think they've got some tough questions to answer. And some people said to me, what do you mean by tough questions? I don't know what the answer is. I don't think they need a complete revolution, but some evolution is required. And I don't know which touches are required. I think probably on Saturday, I think Alexia probably should have come off instead of Pina and been a little bit more attacking in that sense. I don't think Alexia was fast enough with the ball. Graham-Hansen, I don't know if it's just a fitness and she just needs a break thing. We obviously spoke to her before the game and she spoke about, look, this is a team that every summer they have things. I think you forget, I mean, it's going to be increasing now in the men's game with the Club World Cup, etc. But the women pretty much every summer have a tournament. There's just one summer off because they have the Olympics, which they give a lot of credit to as well. I guess there's not as many teams in the Olympics, but I mean, the Spanish players have had the Olympics, the World Cup, the Euros. I think the Euros were delayed because of COVID. So pretty much the last 4 summers, they've always had a major tournament, and the Euros coming up again this summer, etc. So it could just be tiredness, but I do think some evolution is needed. I said to you, I think there are probably only, for me, 4 guaranteed starters ahead of next season. And that's not to mean they need 7 changes. It's just to mean that they're the only 4 that should have their places nailed on. And I said Katakoi, Patri Guijardo, Aitana, and Onabacha, who you said wasn't so good in the final. But I just made the point that her age is good, her profile is good, her performances in general have not been bad. And I think because I'm speaking about having priorities in 7 other positions, you don't need to look to replace her at right back. So I think you then have awkward questions over Fridolina Rolfo. over.
It's not that awkward.
That's probably the least awkward one, yeah. But over Alexia Putellas, probably not over Eva Pajor at this stage, because it's her first season. She'll have a second season. You think she's more adapted.
Scored 45 goals this season.
So not so much over her, but I think more than her, but that role in the team needs to be defined, whether her profile is certainly the best in certain games. I think a tough conversation, and not that they were particularly bad in the final. It was actually Batcher, who I've said should play, who was supposed to be marking Blackstenius, but a conversation over the partnership of Paredes and Mapi Leon, which again is not bad, and I'm not saying that's necessarily what needs to change, but Paredes has just signed a new deal until I think 2027, so she's not going. The partnership is fine for most games, but perhaps they need to be on their toes a bit more serious competition. Obviously, Lai Alexandri's arriving from Manchester City, and then obviously also a big question over, and it seems ridiculous to say because he's already won, the league, Supercoppa, got the Copa del Reina final to come, got to another Champions League final with impressive wins over Chelsea, but whether Pero Romeo, how far he's taken this game, whether there are better options, etc. or not, I don't know how you see the summer going. And like I say, it's more just a question of evolution, a few touches here and there, whether that's giving protagonism to Scherten Leib or Vicky Lopez, or Pina's slowly getting there, some of the youngsters coming through.
Yeah, I think, to go back to the start of what you were saying, I think I also fell into exactly the same trap as you, of seeing this Barca, thinking they haven't been very good this season. They've lost a bit of their shine. Then seeing them put 10 past Wolfsburg and 8 past Chelsea and 9 past Real Betis, and think, oh, okay, actually they've hit perfect form at just the right time for the final. They should win this final very, very easily. And then they just reverted back to the Barca that we had been criticising before the final. So the problems that we said, maybe they aren't problems, actually they are problems. I agree with you. I think the team does need to be refreshed. In part, it's natural. Like, it happens, we see it every year with the men's team and in men's football as well. A winning team can't just stay the same. It has to have some areas where it's refreshed to keep players on their toes, to keep opposition on their toes. So I think it's good that Lai Alexandra is coming in to perhaps take one of those centre-back positions, and whether it's with Paredes or with Mapi Leon, it doesn't matter particularly too much. I think that they're both good players. I think they have struggled at times this season as a partnership, and so that's good. Like you pointed out to me, Sydney Scherten Leib has been, or Leich, how do you know you say it, has been quite good and showing promise. Aitana, I think, is definitely clear as the leader of the team still, and in fact, I think she's been not as good this season with Alexia back in the team as when Alexia's been out, and Aitana has had the sort of full control to be the team's main playmaker. I think Barca are better have been better in those years than with Alexia and Aitana together. I think it's quite clear that, I'm not saying Alexia should leave, but shouldn't be considered like an automatic first choice starter.
Certainly not in midfield.
Sure.
Like, obviously when she was coming back from injury and when Kira Walsh was still there, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the best Barca, but it was kind of Walsh, Patri, Bonmati, Aitana, and then Alexia. They tried her as a false 9, or they would play her on the left in that sort of Mariona role, or different things. It's it's awkward how she's going to fit in and what sort of status she will take, especially as she signed a recent renewal not so long ago. Obviously, one of the best players in the team. I just think the problem Barca have is over the course of the season they're not really tested, and then in the Champions League, so you're not quite sure. Alexia's had a good season in the league and in certain games, and her numbers are quite good, and the feeling was that perhaps she was not getting back to where she was at Ballon d'Or level, but that she was capable of influencing these games. But perhaps off the bench she would have been much better, as we saw in the final last year, etc. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. She could equally get better and better. Obviously, she's still coming back from an injury. Maybe she will get better, but I don't know. That's why I say I don't have the answers. It's just a few tweaks need to happen this summer.
Yeah, on Romeo, I don't know if what he did in the final is a sacking offence, but I didn't like his substitutions very much. I agree, Pino should have been left on the pitch. I think Alexia could have gone off, could have used Vicky Lopez for a bit more, I guess, just speed in the midfield to try and find a way through, and I guess that desire as well that some of the younger players do have, that maybe the older ones, I'm not saying they don't have it, but it's maybe not as sort of sharp as it is in the younger players.
I'd be very surprised if he did go. But yeah, the final he was out-coached, and it felt a little bit, and I thought he might do this before the game, that he was going to rely on the hierarchy, which is what happened with starting Rolfo over Brutz, which I thought he might do, I said before, with keeping Alexia on when he could have perhaps taken her off and been a little bit more attacking at that point in terms of keeping Pina on and getting someone else on the left. Because when you're 1-0 down, you'd rather have Pina on than Alexia, given what we've seen this season. So yeah, he absolutely sort of bowed down to the hierarchy, which is, I guess, I don't know if that shows that he doesn't have complete power or whatnot.
Yeah, or still finding his own footing as the coach. But I thought I found quite interesting was what René Sledgers, the Arsenal manager, was saying after the game, was that in training ahead of the final for a couple of weeks, they've been basically trying to replicate the movements and behaviour of the midfield trio of Alexia, Aitana and Patry, and trying different techniques of trying to stop that, which would have been even more cause to bring on players that weren't those players, to give Arsenal a different test, a different puzzle to solve. Because the midfielders, Aitana was quite good, but they were more or less shackled the whole game.
Yeah, somewhat of evolution, not revolution. But it's going to be interesting to see if they do make any big decisions. Like you say, perhaps Rolfo will leave, perhaps Ingrid Engen. She's obviously out of contract and not considered a starter. Another one who will probably leave and then create space for someone to come in. So we'll see what the summer holds for Barca Femení. But that aside, still another dominating season, and it's a little bit like that sort of famous Lionel Messi speech where you perhaps don't give complete credit to what they're doing because they've normalised the excellence. It is still important to remember in these moments. 6 finals in 7 years is wild. 3 Champions League wins, probably should be more. 6 league titles in a row. We'll see what happens in the Copa del Reina final. Probably be another domestic treble. They'll have won 7 out of 8 trophies in the last 2 years, and they're just this Arsenal game is the only sort of blot on that. So it's not absolutely crazy, but they do need to guard against complacency or thinking that it was just a one-off that Arsenal beat us, we're still fine. They need to use that as the spark to perhaps go again.
Yeah, I think that is reflected in what the players said after the game. They all accepted. None of them were saying we should have won this game in terms of the performance. They all said Arsenal deserved it. We had a terrible game today, and I think that is something that will push them on, give them that motivation and hunger next season.
Yeah, right. That's all we've got time for today. We'll be back on Thursday on Patreon with our season review and our awards. We'll be back next week with the Sporting Director episode also on Patreon, where you can sign up for free. Not all of the podcasts appear on there, but the odd one in the summer does get dropped. In the meantime, have a good summer and stay positive.